Okay. Right now we're going to talk about running the SCR test in PMVIEW. So we're going to jump back to our example case. Go back where we have the SCC example included in PSCAD, which we were testing with the PMVIEW block. In my last video, I was using the multiple run block to step through the different tests. But right now, I just want to run the single SVC test. My WebEx control is covering this, so I will just grab this instead. I want to run the single SVC test, which is test number 11. Sure that's connected right. Yep. There's a few things we have to set up with the SVC tests. The short circuit, not SVC, the short circuit ratio test. So I want to talk a little bit about that right now. So going in here, we're zoomed in a lot. So when we select profile 11, this breaker will be closed and it will be running out of this block here. And there's some additional settings associated with this block. So right click, edit parameters. And the first setting is we need to tell it the generator power being tested because it has to be able to calculate the short circuit ratio. That's not a problem if you're testing a generator. I'm testing an SVC. It was about 160 megavar SVC, so I'm just going to put 160. We'll assume this is we're going to say this is MVA instead of megawatts. Short circuit ratio. You know, it's kind of an approximate calculation anyway, so MVA, megawatts. And then what do these other settings do? So what the short circuit ratio test does is it's going to ramp the short circuit ratio from 10 to 2 over this time period from 5 to 55 seconds. 55 is a long period of time. I think we could ramp it a bit faster in this model. And during the ramping, let's apply 5 faults. So every 5 seconds, it will apply a fault. You'll see graphically how it does it in a minute. We need to run at least 30 seconds. I'm going to run 35 because the last one was at 30. And I'm not going to save my channels to the disk. It might overwrite the number one I made. Well, actually I will. I'll just rename this SCR because I don't want to overwrite the one I just created. Okay. Now we are ready to test. So I'm going to click run. And hopefully it will run okay. There it's running. Okay. Fast forward, my run is completed. The best place to see the results of the short circuit test and understand how they went is to actually go in the PMVIEW block. And the best plots are actually in the short circuit test block. So let's go in there. You can see some of the logic if you care to study for it. And I'm more interested in the plots here. So first plot down here, I'm going to click and resize, is to see the short circuit tests that are being run. So this plot shows both the MVA and the actual short circuit ratio that was being tested. But the MVA is kind of crowding this plot. So I'm going to make it unvisible by clicking there and unchecking that. And now I'm going to click again and resize, letter R key on the keyboard. And now I see that, okay, this makes a lot more sense. During this test, the grid impedance was ramped so that the short circuit ratio went from 10 to 2 over 5 to 30 seconds, just like I said. It was actually 5 to 20, and then plus 5 to plus 25 more, just like I set in the option settings. And if we go to voltage and I resize that, you can see the different faults. It applied 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 faults during that test. And we apply faults during the short circuit ratio test to disturb the operating point of the machine to ensure it's actually stable for that weaker and weaker grid condition. So the idea is, as the system gets weaker, you might find a breaking point where the model will eventually go unstable, especially if you continue it on and test it down to 1.5 or 1.2 short circuit ratio. But let's resize the P and Q plot, see how it performed. And you see this SVC was actually stable during the whole time. So the controls here were pretty good. They operated fine all the way down to short circuit ratio of 2, because that's where we left off, and no problems. The system remained stable, the SVC was stable, and yeah, it works fine at a short circuit ratio of 2. So that shows the results of the short circuit ratio test. And we set it again to ramp from 10, short circuit ratio of 10 to 2. And that was set by editing parameters of the SCR block within the PMVIEW block over the 5 to 30 seconds. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll hopefully look for more content in the future. Thank you.